And I'll turn the time over to Tom for our nature and the environment program feature.
So this is the nature environment in the number 3 book of the program features, and I hope you guys have looked at those 3 books. They are tremendous. They are amazing stuff. Yeah, they've got a lot of stuff in there. So this program features nature and environment, and they're online. If you don't, you can find all 3 of them online now. Just Google Boy Scout program features.
And it's really interactable.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Yep. So nature and the environment. It starts out talking about Boy Scouts, and there's not very many people who spend more time in the outdoors than Boy Scouts, and I hope that's always true, because that's the way it ought to be. Outside doing something, even if it's on the church's lawn occasionally, but outside doing something, and hopefully further away from the church. And so, since the very beginning of scouting, the environment, conservation, nature, being a naturalist, understanding nature and all that stuff has been an integral part of scouting. Ernest Thompson Seton, who was one of the founders of scouting, started a group of naturalist boys and wrote some books. And when I was a kid, I read those books. I had no clue that he was the guy that started scouting, but my dad had him. My dad was big in scouting, but I never had a clue of that. And I loved the books as a kid. And I always wanted to go out and do some of those things that he talked about, living in the outside. But he started this, and then he got with another guy, and in 1910 they started the Scouts with the idea of being out of doors and teaching boys leadership by being outside. And so it's a great thing. So this nature and the environment, it talks about several different things that you can do, and I just want to cover a few things. So I want to start out here. I am such a good artist. This is a quiz. What is this? Dang, I am surprised somebody actually figured that out.
Not the nebulous?
Yeah, that's more what I was thinking I could draw. Yeah, something nebulous. This is the sun. And the sun is the center of the natural world in a lot of ways. So if we talk about the circle of life, what would you put into the circle of life? What happens with the sun, and how does that involve all life on earth? So what do you guys think? If we make a circle of life here, start out with the sun.
We got light.
Light, and what happens?
Got a photosynthesis.
That's right, we have photosynthesis. So we have these plants, and I'm not going to draw a plant. So we have photosynthesis going on. And then what happens? Those plants grow up, and then what happens?
The animals eat them.
Yeah, we have animals that we have plant-eating animals.
Also have oxygen.
Okay, and then plant-eating animals, and then we have what else happens?
There's some magic that happens, and you end up with pizza and like.
That's right. We have the carnivores, you know, the herbivores here and the carnivores here, but we have the meat eaters, I guess we could call them. And then these guys die and they fertilize the plants, you know, they decompose.
Become oil.
Yeah. They break down into all the minerals. And then plants come back together again. You know, there's some bugs in there that decompose things, and you know, we can get pretty complicated in here and talk about a lot of different aspects, because inside the plants there's all kinds of circles inside there. There's cycles inside here, and there's cycles inside the cycles. There's cycles all over, and that's what nature is a whole series of cycles. And we, you know, most of us like to be meat eaters. We should be a little bit more plant eaters, they tell us, but you know, we're part of this. We're also part of this. And for all of us, this circle is really important, because pretty much everything we get, as far as energy goes, one way or another, came from the sun. And it's important for scouts to understand all of this too. But it's also fun for scouts to know a little bit about this, but then to go out to the natural world and take a look at some of this stuff. And that's where you can do a whole bunch of different activities. Basically, they get a whole bunch of lists of all the merit badges and things in here that you can do. They talk about this circle of life, and then they just talk about the different things that you can do. And you can spend a lot of time going out there and looking at different parts of them and learning to identify them. And that's one of the things that they emphasize in here is learning how to identify birds, learning how to identify fish, learning how to identify tracks of animals.
Use of fire.
Use of fire. I mean, that's a piece of it. Piece of, you know, we talk about decomposition. Fire is a rapid decomposer. And so, you know, you can get into all kinds of things here. So I wanted to ask you guys, if you were going to get kids to identify things, where would you go around here to identify some stuff?
Anywhere.
I agree. You can go about anywhere and look for stuff.
Oh, we have an amazing place
But
here.
there's some specific places I might go for certain types of things, and I was curious what you guys think, because you probably know way more places than I know.
Might go out by O'Ray for some bird watching.
For some birds,
Identify
duck
birds.
watching, yep, and
Porcupines.
porcupine, that's the one you can see out there, yep. And you can see deer and elk at certain times of the year, and, yep. Okay.
See predators.
Where?
You see predators out there like O'Ray Bird Refuge.
Mm-hmm. You
They
do.
don't get hunted and they stand around and look at you.
Yep.
I'll say, that's a coyote.
Yeah. That's right, it's surprising. I love to take boys out there. I love to go myself. But you can spend a lot of time. But along with going out there, we always want boys to learn things. And so learning to identify certain ones of them. Where would you go if you wanted to look at some other things? Staniker's another place for birds and fishes.
Even hyenas are awesome.
Yes, I've hiked up on Leidy a few times and seen ptarmigans up there, and just
Pika and
pika, and there's life everywhere. And you can find all kinds of flowers. You can learn to identify some of them. You can learn to identify some, and you can actually eat them. I go out and eat a few. Some of them I don't eat because I'm too afraid that I'm not as good of an identifier, but some of them I feel pretty good about, and I'll try them. Some of the berries, like thimbleberries up in Dry Fork right now, are ripe. And I don't know if you've ever tried thimbleberries, but they're pretty tasty. And the raspberries are ripe up there. And the choke cherries, which are not as tasty, make great jelly, but they're starting to come on just a little bit. They're not quite there.
the wild strawberries are just
They're ending up.
ending up.
Yeah.
Tom, one thing you say, learn, I think get them out there, and then there's this other little challenge we have of these devices from different positions that I've worked in. It's a big challenge from adults to youth
Yeah, it is.
of working with these devices. They're going to be with them, they're going to have them. Why not
And you
start
can use those.
initiating the thought process of using them correctly? I mean, you got a handful of books, but,
Well,
but
I
on your
also-
other hand,
I also, in my other hand, I have a handful of apps on my phone.
right, and so you go out there, and I mean, there's apps and libraries and different things. I mean, you can take a picture of the stars and say, okay, we're looking at those constellations.
Yes.
And I mean, just amazing things that you can pull out of that, but turn this into good.
Right, and that was going to be one of my things, and I totally agree with you. That's definitely it. So there's lots of places to go to look at stuff, but to look at the animals, especially, I try to get near water somewhere, either the
Yeah.
river, one of the lakes, or something here. But just about anywhere you go, you can find stuff. evenings and early mornings are great. I was up on Diamond, just drove up by the ranch, just as you hit on the top. About 8 years ago, I counted about 75 head of deer up there, and about 30 of them were bucks in one spot. And you know, the stuff is all out there, but boys need to get out there. They need us to help them get there so that they can look for
They
it.
can experience it.
But learning how to identify and know what they're looking at is a good thing too. And I will talk a little bit about the phone stuff because I think that that's an excellent thing to do. I agree. I went over to the DWR. These three, the Upland Game and Turkey Guidebook, the Fishing Guidebook, and the Waterfowl Guidebook, seemed better than the rest of them, because in the back, they have pictures that they can identify them with. And there's quite a few pages,
And those ones are free.
and they're free.
I
Because
like that.
you can get a proclamation for every boy, you know. Same with the fishing guidebook, and you can take boys out fishing and you can get them to identify them, because you go up to Steinecker, you go up to Red Fleet, you go up to some of these places, you're going to catch at least a couple different kinds probably. And if you use the right baits, you're probably going to catch 3 or 4 different kinds. And the Waterfowl Guidebook, the same way. So those were free ones that I could find.
Throw in, I know you're on a time limit, I spent a week at Hyena and the DWR didn't come. I took an aluminum boat and they asked for volunteers to help with fishing, and I took people fishing for 5 days. So you'd be surprised at the number of boys that said that was the first fish they ever caught. I couldn't believe it, but a couple, 3 dozen, first fish they ever caught.
Yeah. And then teaching them how to clean it and eat it is.
And then we did that, we cleaned and.
My brother was just out with scouts last weekend, and they caught some, and of course, my brother and I like to eat the eyeballs. And so he fried up a lot of the eyeballs. He got one boy to try them.
Try you over when we get some.
We'll save them.
Okay. Yeah.
Send the heads your way.
Here's a couple of things, how to identify trees from the Forest Service. These are free. You have to ask for this one. They said they used to sell it for $3, but if you ask for it right now, they'll give it to you because they have it in a drawer. And I
What's
asked
the name of that one?
It's called What Tree Is That? And it comes from the National Arbor Society.
Oh.
This is one put out by the National Forest for some of the trees. So that's some free stuff that's out there. And if you want to pay for stuff, there's all kinds of stuff. I just grabbed this one. And oh, by the way, if you want to do something with stars and nighttime sky and stuff, Clark and I would be willing to come to your troop and do something some night. We both have telescopes and we love to play around with that
There's
stuff.
kind of catch, it's gotta be dark.
It does have to be night.
No
And
clouds.
no cloud, yeah.
Important part, isn't
No
it?
clouds, yeah.
Just to throw in, we used them at fall camp 2 years ago, 3, 4.
Something
3,
like that.
4, a while ago, yeah.
They came out and did a great job. Kids loved it.
The library also has a number of the books that you could purchase, but at the library you can rent them.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, so that's a good idea. I didn't even think about that one, see?
Check them out.
That's why we have these meetings, guys, because if you have ideas, we can share them with everybody. Here's one on, just came out, you can buy it. If you really want to get deeper into it, it's Uinta Flora, Uinta Basin and Uinta Mountains. It's Shel Goodrich and Alan Huber, and some of you probably know those guys. But they just published this one. It's a dichotomous key for identifying all the flowers out here. And if you got a boy that's getting serious into it, or you have some boys that really like it, they can get into
And
this.
don't be afraid to call Cheryl and
Yeah.
bring him
I-
in. He had named and identified over 25, I believe, new species of
Yeah,
plants.
would not surprise me. Yeah, there's
He doesn't stop.
yeah, I was trying to remember. There's 1,700 flowers that are vascular plants, I should say, that are identified Just here in the basin. I've spent the last few years trying to go out and take pictures of a few of them. And I have maybe 300 pictures, maybe.
It's neat stuff.
Yeah, so it is fun, and it's really interesting stuff if you can get kids to take the time and start doing it. This is a good book, Western book, Birds by Sibley. That's a good one, and you can buy those, but that stuff costs money. Now, if you get on your phone and you start looking for apps, I could not find an app for tracks. I found a couple that said they were free, but they were so full of advertisements that I finally just took them off my phone because I could never get them to work. The advertisements were always popping up. But there is, if you watch the Audubon bird books, and they have all kinds of Audubon books. They're free. There's one day a year, and I haven't figured out which day it is. I got it. But you can download them one day a year for free, otherwise you have to pay for it. But there's books on mushrooms, butterflies, mammals. I had them in here, but I don't have them in this folder.
I think
There's a
share
lot you
that
can-
and get this round table. That's for
Yeah.
sharing those things.
Yeah.
Bringing them on.
There's a one for birds called Merlin, and that's a free one you can download. You have to be connected to the internet to use it because it goes out every time you try to look for something. There's another one called Utah Flowers. It is a really good one and it's free, and it's a really good one for the boys to use because it uses pictures and easy things to identify. Like you use color, you use kind of shapes of the plant, shapes of the flower, how many number of petals, just a few simple things that they can punch in there, and it'll bring up a list of the things in Utah that are there. Yeah.
Utah Division of Wildlife Resources has their website.
Yes, they
And
do.
It has waterfowl identification, upland
Yes.
species. There's a fish identification. I don't know if there's anything on big game or tracks there.
I didn't find anything on big game or tracks, but I did find those two. Yeah.
Time to
Glad you
develop,
reminded me.
Tom.
I'm glad you reminded me.
There's also, I don't know if the app's still out there. It was called Stargazer, and you could literally hold up your phone and it would use your GPS
There-
location.
Yes, there's a couple of
Get
them out there.
close.
Google does one that's free, and then there's Skywalk.
Skywalk, yeah.
Yeah, Skywalk, there's a free version and a paid version. The paid version is $3 or $4, and the free version is free. And those are some really good ones. There are some cool apps out there for astronomy. I collected quite a few. Had to take some of them off my phone because it was getting too full. But there's a lot of stuff out there. And, you know, if you decide to do something, you got a question, bring it here, or call Clark or I will. We'll help you find stuff. I mean, that's what we're here for.
Tom, one thing that's fun with these boys is don't have all the answers.
Yes.
Ask them a question, say, what is that? Okay, we're standing out here. You have phones. Tell me what that is.
Yeah,
And
figure it
just
out.
make them start
Uh-huh.
thinking, and that's going to get them using those devices for something good, and then takes it off your shoulders too. Let them
It
lead.
does. Yeah, let them lead. Yeah, I agree. And there's a lot of stuff out there you can figure out. We haven't even talked about the geology of the area. There's a ton of geology, and you can go out and identify stuff. You can go out and find fossils. I can tell you some fossil locations if you want to take boys out to look at fossils.
Is it still possible to go out and actually turn them up? I know there was some BLM stuff on the White River and they used to let you go
Down
find.
at the Cowboy Canyon.
Yeah. Is that
It
protected
is
now?
still possible on BLM ground. You have to be careful about how much you take. Depending on if an officer comes out there to talk to you, it depends on the officer's interpretation of it.
But I think leaves are unlimited, right?
They're not unlimited, but there's a limit of one big rock over 25 pounds, 10 pounds of rocks per day. Some people interpret that as 10 pounds per day, but one time during the year. See, that's where it gets a little fuzzy. But
Or
I've
dump
not
them off
had
at your house
problems
each day.
around here with collecting. But you cannot collect on any state park. You cannot collect on Dinosaur National Monument. You need, when you go out to some of these federal and state facilities, you don't collect on them because they protect the stuff there. That stuff is there for everybody to go look at. Forest Service, I'm not sure. I've been trying to figure out the Forest Service.
And it depends on who you ask. There you go.
That's right, because I work with the museum down here, and he's been filling me in on all of the little rules and stuff, and he says it's confusing. He says he has permits for all of these areas, and he says, I still don't know what I can actually carry away.
Let's transition into an open forum. Any questions? I've got apples for Cracker Barrel. We're doing that plants herbivore thing.
Yeah, the herbivore part, the part we should be doing instead of the meat part, yeah.
But just ask away and Tom will answer and I'll watch.
Well, you
But
can also
you
use
can-
the opportunity to teach leave no trace.
Yes,
And take
right.
take their phones, you know, use their devices with
yes, and we've done
pictures
it,
and-
we've talked about that a lot in here as the leave no trace, and that's an important part of the conservation part of being out there, is leave no trace.
They can still collect gastroliths, because people believe in them. Some of them pull out just a river rock, but, you know, depending on where you find them.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
dinosaur stomach stones. I
Uh-huh.
think an arrowhead's old. Think about a rock that's gone through a dinosaur's
Yes.
digestive tract, you know,
Mhm.
that's pretty old.
Yeah.
And they're still out there, quite a few of them.
Uh-huh.
The areas you gotta be careful.
Yeah,
Are you
be
sure
careful.
about that?
Yeah, out by Stanica, that's where we always went when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the elephant toes. But here is what you cannot collect anywhere, unless you are on private ground. And that is vertebrate fossils. Any kind of animal that has a backbone. Although, they don't say anything to you if you're collecting up there in the road cut at Steinecker, the fish scales, which is a vertebrate fossil. But nobody, they just basically just turn their eye generally. I haven't heard of anybody ever getting in trouble over that. And I see people collecting up there all the time.
I would encourage it.
Yeah, I do.
I encourage people to get out there and
get out and
gather
find
stuff.
stuff, yeah.
I mean,
But if
like, no trace, I'm teaching them to be respectful, but
Uh-huh.
if they find something that's great and it's under the dirt, tell them,
Yeah.
they can have it.
But vertebrate fossils, you gotta be careful about. And any kind of Native American artifact, you can get in trouble for that too.
Isn't that a leverite?
Leave it right there, yeah, yeah. Now, if you find something really cool as far as a vertebrate fossil, you can go in and talk to Steve at the museum, and if he looks at it and decides to excavate it, there's a good chance he would let whoever found it go out with him to excavate it. I went out with him on a dig 2 or 3 months ago.
Steve Sandow?
Picking up a bone out.
You talking to Steve Sandow?
No, not Steve Sandow, Steve Schroka, the
Okay.
museum director. Now, Steve has a lot of permits, and he doesn't.
He doesn't work for the museum, he just
No,
does
he-
it privately, but
He goes out for the oil fields and does a lot of.
he knows that stuff very well.
Yes, he does, and he's brought in some very. When he finds a fossil, he has to put it into a repository, and he's been doing it at BYU and Utah State. But now that our museum has that storage facility built on the end, some of his stuff's starting to come to our museum, and it'll get displayed in the museum too. So, because it's the closest federally approved facility, and so unless he has contracts for putting stuff out there, he brings it here. But you can go out and do a lot of stuff, and that's what boys. You know, if you go out and collect fossils at the leaf fossils out at Cowboy Canyon, talk to the boys a little bit about what formation it is, and how old it is, and have them try to identify the types of leaves that they're looking at. And if they look close, they can see a lot of insects also.
It's so funny, I have to share something real quick. See, we just took those boys to National Scout Jamboree, and the boys from around here, they don't know plants. They don't. And so we'd be hiking, and first thing they gotta do is, I gotta pee. So and they're all in shorts, right? And they'd take off in Virginia there, West Virginia. Step off, not 2 feet off the trail, and they go to the bathroom, they get back on, here we go, down the trail. At night, their legs are just welted up. And I mean, just blistering. It's just so funny. The first experience with poison ivy and poison oak. But what an opportunity for them to learn.
That's
And
right.
we were able to get it washed off. It wasn't too severe, but it was a fun experience for them to learn.
Yeah.
They were watching after that.
They learned fast, right?
There's a few spots around here where you can find it, but it's pretty rare here.
Yeah. If you go up Hog Canyon, up near the back end, there is tons of it up there. So if you want to take boys out to
In their shorts.
in their shorts, take them up there and let them walk around.
Soap and water as
Yeah.
quick as you can, get it washed off, and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Go fishing at Jones Hole, and they're stinging all.
Yes.
That'll get you.
They don't know that, some of them.
But if you go fishing at Jones Hole, there's a lot of geology, there's a lot of, there's the Indian petroglyphs, there's all kinds of things. And if you can assign boys before you go out to some of those places, if you know certain things are out there, have boys get the information and have them each teach a lesson on the petroglyphs out there, whatever they can find. You know, have some of the boys know about the fish and tell everybody else about the fish and know the regulations. Have the boys take care of it. Make them the instructors.
And you can't forget about Crack Falls.
Crack?
You know where Butt Crack Falls is?
No, I didn't.
I thought it was 3 Butt Falls.
3 Butt Falls?
3 Butt Falls.
Ely Creek, okay.
And they put their bodies in the stream and they dam it up, and they always made the scout leaders go to the bottom. And so as soon as they dammed up all their little dams,
Yeah.
they'd roll out one at a time, and they'd come over.
And
Just about
bridge
like-
this, yeah.
Jones Hole is a neat opportunity.
Yeah, Jones Hole, yeah, it's good. It's a good place. But there's a lot of good places around here. There's just so many good places. So, anyway, we're done, I think, so.
We're done?
If we can come and do a star party for you guys, Clark, I'm gonna be happy to do that.
And Clark Barker would be happy to do the closing prayer.
Sure.
That's what happens when you come like that.